Welcome to the Passive Mobile Home Park Investing Podcast with your host, Andrew Keel. This is the podcast where you can get the education you need to invest 100% passively in the highly profitable niche of mobile home parks.
Welcome to the Passive Mobile Home Park Investing Podcast. This is your host, Andrew Keel. And today we have an amazing guest in Mr. Gabe Petersen of Kaizen Properties. Before we dive in, I want to ask you a real quick favor. Would you mind please taking an extra 30 seconds and heading over to iTunes to rate this podcast with 5 stars? This helps us get more listeners, and it means the absolute world to me. So thanks for making my day with that review of the show. All right, let's dive in. Gabe is a mobile home park and self-storage investor and the host of the podcast, The Real Estate Investing Club. After working corporate and dabbling in real estate for the better part of a decade, Gabe decided to take the leap full-time into real estate in 2019. And since then, he has purchased 2 mobile home/RV parks and 4 self-storage facilities across 3 states. Gabe is based out of Seattle, Washington, and we're excited to have him. So Gabe, welcome to the show.
Awesome, Andrew. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Dude, let's start off by just hearing a little bit about your story and what got you interested in manufactured housing.
Yeah, for sure. I like to tell my story just because I know other people out there also got started in corporate or are also in corporate and they are looking for a way out. That's exactly where I was, I don't know, more than a decade ago now. But I graduated UW with a degree in philosophy. That you can't do anything with philosophy. I planned on going to law school, but I followed some lawyers and I was like, this is not the job for me. Got into consulting. I was a project manager and a business analyst for about 7-8 years. But the job was fun. I just didn't like being in corporate. I didn't like having to drive, an hour and a half every day to get to work. And then I didn't really like the lack of freedom, the lack of direction, self-direction that I could have in the job. So I probably about 5 years in, I started looking for a way out. What can I do? I wanted to start my own business. I tried an e-commerce store. That didn't work, or actually it did work. I just didn't like the job. I tried marketing for other people because I got good at marketing in e-commerce. But again, I was just kind of sitting behind the computer and I didn't really like that. And so then I got into, or actually I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is the start of so many people's stories out there. I love it. And I decided to get into real estate. And that's when I started wholesaling, doing some flips. And that kind of led me down the path of real estate. About 8 years into the corporate world, I decided to take the full leap, get out of corporate and dive headfirst into real estate. It took me a while, it took me about 6 to 8 months, but then I bought my first mobile home park out in George, Washington with some partners, bought the second one shortly thereafter. And then I got into self-storage and I've bought 4 self-storage, and that's kind of condensing the story down, but here we are today.
That's fantastic, man. Well, congratulations on your success, because that's not your typical, ramp up going from, hey, we're just dabbling to all the way into commercial. So that's super awesome. Tell me a little bit more about your parks and kind of how you put those deals together, the size of them, give me the lowdown.
Yeah. Okay, so I always start kind of with how we found the parks, because I feel like that is, especially when you're just getting started, that's one of the most difficult things to do, is find a good deal. So I mentioned before, I had a little bit of background in marketing, and I joined some partners and we started marketing for properties, off-market marketing. So we did some mailers. We didn't have a ton of success with mailers, but we did our RVM, so ringless voicemail, and text marketing. And that was, we found a lot of success with that. We got this one, the first one in George, through an RVM, I believe. So it's just a voicemail drop that goes into their inbox. And it just said, hey, we're local investors. We'd love to make you an offer if you're interested. We got a call back and they said, yes, we'd love to. It was kind of funny. The owner of this property, that's one of my favorite things about real estate, is talking to sellers, because they all have crazy stories. But this guy, he owned this park, obviously, but his main business was potatoes. He's like the potato king of Washington State. And what people don't know about Washington is we're one of the biggest producers of potatoes. We rival Idaho. Even. And so this guy was just dominating of potatoes, and he wanted to create kind of a themed city in George. And he bought tons of land, tried to go down this path, realized this is my strengths are potatoes. I can't do this. So he started selling off. He tried to sell everything that he owned in the city. George is a really tiny thing, but he didn't. He had to start parceling it out. And we called him about this park. He's like, sure, whatever. Let's sell it. I don't want this. I got to get back to my potatoes. So we got a good deal on it. It was, it's not a great park. It was kind of run down, but that's where the best deals are. And we bought it for $450,000, and we got seller financing on it. It's a 10-year note, and we got really good interest. I can't remember. I think it was 3.5%. And we put, I don't remember the numbers. I think it was 10 or 15% down. So really low.
Wow.
And
how many lots is it?
It is 26 lots, and we are adding 4.
Okay.
26.
Nice.
No, 27 lots, and we're adding 4. Sorry.
Okay.
27 lots, and it also has a duplex on it, but the duplex is completely run down. We're more leaning to the side of demolishing it than rehabbing it. But each site rents for $350, but the market rent is around $425. And so we're slowly increasing it to that. It's on city water, city sewer. Unfortunately, they're not sub-metered. So the water bill is included in the price. And so far it's been a great deal. It's all migrant workers, which we own this other park, and they are not migrant workers. I really like owning a property, that services the migrant workers, because they're always on time with their payments. It's just a very, very good demographic to be providing housing to.
Awesome. So what's your plans? You said it's not sub-metered, the one that's 31 lots or 27 plus the 4. What are you going to sub-meter it? Have you guys thought of doing that? Seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, we've thought of doing it. We went down that path, and I don't remember why we decided it wasn't a good point right now. I think there was something to do with I wasn't the one that got the bid, but I think there was something to do with the actual connection. When you get the sub-meter, it was like water Metron or something like that.
Metron Farnier.
Yeah,
that's who we use. Yeah, with like the radio reads, and I mean it's first class, and it's not that expensive, unless maybe the city wouldn't allow you to sub-meter or something like that, which we've run into that before. But a lot of times they're on your side because they're conserving the total amount of water. So I highly recommend, if I was you, after this podcast, I would get on the phone with Bill Beard, I think is his name, with Metron, and you should seriously consider sub-metering that park ASAP. I mean, that's like the easiest value add you can do. What we found when we sub-meter a park, instantly the tenants start using 30% less water than they were the month before. So it's like,
Yep.
It's a no-brainer. I mean, you guys obviously with the seller financing and everything got a really great deal.
Yeah.
But I would definitely juice it. Unless you want to sell it to me and leave it unsub-metered, and then I'll come in and sub-meter it.
No, it is a good idea, and it's something we need to do. We'd been focusing on other things, prior to that, but it is something that we probably should do. There was something to do with the actual connection of the meter to the water
meter.
Yeah.
To the water lines. Okay.
There is some other work that had to be done, and it cost like $20,000, and we were like, nah, we don't want to do that right now. I can't remember what it was, but there was something in there.
Gotcha. So that one's 27 lots. Tell me about the other one. You have another one in Washington as well?
Yep. And that one's in Moses Lake, which is probably about 30-ish minutes away from the original one. Again, that one we got through RVMs. And again, we got seller financing on it, and it just absurd deal. He gave us 2.6% interest.
Wow.
We got it for $650,000, and there are 47 units there.
Wow.
9 of them are mobile homes, and the remainder are RVs, long-term RVs. Luckily, both of the parks are 100% full. The Moses Lake one is renting at $450 per unit.
Wow.
And it also has, it originally was a KOA, or something like that. I don't know if it's specifically KOA, but that's how kind of it functioned. And so the very front of the park it has this big structure on it, like kind of like it used to be like a community space. So the top has an apartment, and so that's where our property manager, who manages both of the parks, she lives there. She has the bottom to herself. She has her office, and then there's communal bathrooms, and then this one is on well and septic, so it's different than the George one, which is interesting because it saves a lot of money. I was always against well and septic when we were learning. We were taught, don't ever buy well and septic. It's a problem. I like it. It saves a ton of money. And we've had to replace one septic system. It was actually pretty expensive. It was like $30,000. But
how long have you owned this property, the Moses Lake one?
That one we bought in March of 2020.
There's still time.
Yeah. Oh, for things to go wrong.
There's still plenty of time for things to go wrong. Yeah. I just from experience of owning and operating private utilities, it seems like it's not that bad, but not that it can't be, right? It's all how it's maintained. If it's maintained well, it can last. But you definitely have to find a good manager that's going to make sure to keep it maintained and keep the lines clear and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's awesome that you already got those two. And then how do you manage them? Do you just manage them in-house?
Yeah. So we hired the property manager, and we got really lucky. She is amazing. Property managers, in my opinion, can make or break a deal. And
totally.
When you get a good one, it's night and day. So she's great, and we love having her. And she manages both the George property and the Willows or the Moses Lake property.
That's great. Yeah. The on-site management team, if they're good, it makes your life. I'll never forget the very first park that I bought. It was a husband and wife management team, and the husband was very handy. The wife was very, diligent and tech savvy. So it was the perfect match. And she's still with us to this day. And nice. It just was like, if this is what mobile home park, management ownership is like, I want to buy a ton of these. This is great. And then we've run into other hurdles where, not every management team is as good as that one. But yeah, that's wonderful, man. So tell me, what has been the toughest hurdle for you in the business, Gabe? In mobile home park business? I know you have other stuff going on, but
Yep. The toughest hurdle. Let me think about that one for a second.
Is it management? Is it acquisitions? Is it financing? What would you say? Obviously not the financing, with the seller financing you're getting.
Yeah, we got lucky. I know, I've done talked to a ton of other sellers, and not many of them want seller financing. I'm sure you've seen the same experience.
Yeah.
But we got really lucky with those. And so we're happy with that. In terms of the most difficult thing, it's been really good. I'm knocking on wood right now because it's been really good with those two properties. Probably management, if I just had to choose something.
Sure.
Just because, these are tenants can have things come up and break things. And so management is probably number one. And also the Moses Lake property, that structure that I was talking to you about, that one had a lot of issues. And so we had to tear out a bathroom. We had to do quite a bit of stuff to that to make it livable for Katrina, the property manager. So, gotcha. But it's not that big of a deal. I don't want to complain because it's just a mini flip, but
sure.
It's probably the hardest thing in terms of what we had to deal with the
had to deal with thus far, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And you bought both of those properties, 2019, 2020?
No, so I made the leap 2019, but it took 6 to 8 months to get to even buy one. And so the first property was bought in 2020.
2020.
That was
either way,
yeah.
They're fairly recent, right?
Yep.
And they're going well, and you're just kind of getting your feet wet. That's great. Well, let me ask you this, just from your perspective, what would you say are the most important things passive investors, like LPs, what would they need to look out for when investing into mobile home parks? What are things, obviously they don't need to know, if homes have shutoffs underneath the homes and things like that, like they're looking more big picture. What tips would you give them just knowing what you know now?
As an LP, the first thing you need to look for is the track record of the person, of the GP, of the general partner. I mean, that's number one. If they've done it before, it's really hard because, even when you're a new investor and you're trying to get people to invest with you, you don't have that track record. And so it's really difficult to get the investors to jump on board. But I mean, as the LP, that's really something you got to look for. Has this person successfully executed a deal before? Have they taken a park that was in bad condition, fixed it up, brought it up to market, increased the value of the property, and can they actually deliver on their promises? So probably just track record of the GP is number one. I think that's the most important, because if you trust your GP, then you don't really need to know too much more about the actual operations or underwriting of a mobile home park. But if you're interested in that, I think it's really important to understand what makes a good deal and why there's going to be a good return on a property. So, understanding the metro, understanding market rates. So doing your own research, looking into a metro, seeing, maybe even call a few mobile home parks in the area to verify that the investor, the GP that you're going with, has done his homework, is actually getting into a good deal. So stuff like that is probably the easiest things that an LP can do to verify that it's a good investment.
Definitely. And tell me, Gabe, what's your plan for the future? You have these two parks, things are going, pretty well with them. Are you going to continue to grow the mobile home park space? It looks like you're also into self-storage, and that's going well. What's the plan for your company?
Yeah. So I was lucky up until this last deal I did. I was able to do it with my own money. So that I just did my first deal where I brought on other outside investors to take down the park, and so, or the self-storage facility. And so that's the goal. Is I kind of got the taste. I really like making other people money. I like bringing I like the process of investing itself, just finding something that doesn't needs a little love, giving it that love, and then seeing the end result. But I've gotten the bug for getting bringing other people along and really helping them out in terms of return on their investment. So that's the goal going forward. I like both mobile home parks and self-storage. They're two different things, but I really like both of them. I've also looked at retail, commercial, kind of like strip centers. I think that's something that I might do in the future. But right now, just self-storage, mobile home parks. I'm going to keep going down that route.
Very cool. Yeah, both of those are good. We recently got into some storage as well, and nice. It's a good complement to parks. But parks, are still our main bread and butter. Let me ask you this, Gabe. What does the perfect mobile home park look like in your eyes, and why?
Perfect mobile home park. Oof, that's a good one. Well, I think there's two different types of perfect mobile home parks. There is the flip perfect mobile home park, and then there is the just walk into it and buy it and you're done perfect mobile home park. I'll start with the second one. It would be ideal if you got there's a mobile home park that is on city water, city sewer. It's all sub-metered. It's got a really good property manager in there. It's got paved roads, maybe a little bit of skirting. All the homes are really nice. Gating. There's a sign. It's really clean mobile home park. And if you got it for an 8 cap, if it's a perfect mobile home park, it's in great condition. All the homes are relatively new, and you got it for an 8 cap. That would be great. On the other side, a flip, imperfect in that sense. It's just, flips, you gotta love them as they are. You can't,
sure.
If you're doing value add, you can't look for perfect. You gotta take them as they are and run with it. But it really just comes down to, can you increase the value? So is our rents under market? Is there a good opportunity for you to really bring the value of the property up in terms of cleaning it up, repairing maybe broken lines, anything like that? So just, is there a good opportunity to improve value? and well, is it in a good metro? But for a value add property, you got to love it as it is.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing is you got to be prepared for the project, right? It's in storage, it's a little bit different. You kind of can do that market research, and a lot of your value add could be just raising rents because a lot of the mom and pops haven't. But the value add in mobile home parks is a whole different ball game. It's a lot more labor intensive, and bringing in homes, especially, is a big undertaking. Have you done any of that yet in any of your parks?
So I mentioned we bought it 27 units and we're adding 4. So we just added 2 of them. And so one of them, somebody came in, they wanted to bring the RV. So we allowed that. And the other one, it's our first site that we're actually bringing in a home. And we found the home. It needs some love, but it was like $6,000. So it was really cheap. And we're going to bring it in, and this will be our first experience.
Nice.
What advice could you give us?
Oh man. What advice? I would say, I would say number one, make sure your foundation is good. Make sure I'm not sure if you require concrete footers or, piers or anything like that, but I would make sure you'd maybe have the inspector come out beforehand before the home gets there and make sure that the foundation's good. Cause some states require a certain concrete, footers or piers. And then they'll also require a mounding, so that water doesn't sit under the home. So just make sure the foundation is good. And then I would also, before you get the home on the lot, make sure your utility connections are there and clear. A lot of times with vacant sewer lines, vacant lots, for example, kids will come in and take off the top and put rocks down the sewer line. And then you get the home on top. And it's like, all right, well, now it's twice as much to snake that line. I should have done it before the home was there. I know that from experience once or twice. And then the other thing is the water lines. Yeah, I've done that a couple of times, unfortunately. And then, the water lines, making sure that you have a new fresh shut off on there while there's not a home on top, because it's way harder to do once there's a home on top. So some of that kind of stuff. And then I know your parks are up north. So when you bring that home in, I would spend the extra money and do insulated skirting or metal skirting. So that you insulate your water lines and things like that under the home, so that you prevent water leaks, because those lines will freeze, and that's no fun.
I just learned that there are heated hoses. So you don't have to put heat tape on it. It's just a hose that is heated. And this blew my mind. I was like, that's genius.
Over top of the water lines, you just put the hoses over top of it, or it's the actual lines that go from the where it's coming out of the ground into the home.
No, I guess the water line itself is itself, but I'm talking about just the hose that you would connect. Well, we're thinking of RVs here, but the hose that connects to the RV, they have heated hoses, which it's great.
Yeah, that's very cool. Very cool. Gabe, what are some mistakes that you've made with these 2 mobile home parks?
So the first one, the biggest one that jumps out to my mind is onboarding a property. The first park we did, it was just a shit show. I'm sorry for swearing on your podcast, but it was just crazy. We were not organized enough. Nobody was on a lease, and so we had to get everybody onto our lease. And we did that. We threw a barbecue, and most people in the park spoke Spanish. I was the only one who spoke Spanish in the partnership, and so we were just trying to corral everybody, and there was no real organization to how we're getting everybody signed on a lease and explaining to them, what the new ownership is, et cetera, et cetera. So that was probably the biggest mistake we did, because we left there, we just had a pile of papers, and we were we didn't even know if we had everybody signed. And it was just oh God, I don't know what just happened.
I've been there. And we have a park that primarily is, they speak Spanish, and it's really tough if you don't have someone that's fluent to, communicate. And so we ended up, our on-site manager was bilingual, and she actually translated the whole lease into Spanish. And that was huge, because then they kind of, because then they understood the rules and they understood the things that were in there. So, so you're fluent in Spanish?
No,
Or-
that's the other problem. I'm not fluent.
Okay.
I'm decent.
You're decent at it. Oh my goodness.
If someone who didn't spoke Spanish, someone who doesn't speak Spanish hears me, they'll think I'm fluent, but I'm like definitely not fluent. So yeah, it was a challenge, but we got through it.
It was a challenge, yeah, but you learned, and that's what's most important.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let me ask you this, Gabe. What is the value proposition at Kaizen Properties? What makes you guys different, and what would make an investor want to invest with you guys?
Yeah, so value proposition, I guess there's multiple ways to look at that, from whose perspective you're looking through. In terms of the customers, like at our self-storage facilities, we're always improving our facilities. And so they're always, when we buy them, we really have high standards for having a quality facility, that has all the amenities that you would expect in a grade A facility, even if it's not an A-class structure. So we're looking to do the A-class service, even if it's not, a double-story climate controlled kind of thing. From the investor side, an LP coming in to invest with us, the value proposition is really the experience. We've 60. I'm sure you've done, I don't know how many deals. I've seen you on social media. You guys are crushing it. You're doing a really good job out there. So you have a ton of experience. But I'm getting up there. We're going on to deal number 6 here, something like that. And so we have a lot of track records, or a track record of excellence. All of our deals have done very, very well. And so that's kind of the value add, is that the deals that we get into are, I don't go into deals that are not absolutely, out of the park great. And so when you invest with us, then you know that you're going to have a good return.
That's great. Yeah, I would say that I learned probably 80% of what I know on the first 5 parks that we bought. Yep. It was like the first 5 was like this drastic learning curve of just like taking everything in. And then since then, there's been little tweaks here and there, but those first 5 were like the most important.
Drinking from the fire hose.
Yes. Yep. Definitely.
How many of you, if you don't mind if I ask you a question, how many parks do you guys have in your portfolio?
We have 33 parks in our portfolio
doggies.
now.
Wow.
Yeah. So
great.
We've been blessed, and things are consistently growing. We purchased 10 this year. So wow. It's been a really good year for us. We're really blessed. And, some of them are pretty big value add projects. So we're, facing supply shortages and tough getting contractors and things like that, which I'm sure, you and other investors are facing the same struggles. But I'm really proud of our team. I couldn't do it like if it was just me. The team is what has helped us get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, well, awesome, Gabe. How can our listeners get a hold of you if they would like to do so? Yeah,
so the best way, Kaizen's website is kaizenpropertiesusa.com, or you can go to the podcast, and that's therealestateinvestingclub.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Gabe, for coming on the show and adding value to our listeners. That is it for today, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in.
All right. Thanks, Andrew.
Hey, are you getting value out of this show? If so, would you mind please going over to iTunes and leaving the show a quick 5-star review? I have a goal of hitting over 100 5-star reviews by the end of 2021, and it would mean the absolute world to me if you could help contribute to that. Thanks ahead of time for making my day with your 5-star review of the show.